Hi, I'm Dan Ligotti with Silver Solutions, the senior home services company, and welcome to an all-new episode of AgeWise. Our goal with each episode is simple, and that is to make you or someone in your life that may be caring for an aging parent or loved one a little smarter about all the things you're going to face in the weeks and years ahead. And today, our conversation with Dr. Barry Jacobs and Dr. Julia Meyer really hits the mark. They're the authors of the new AARP Caregiver Answer Book. Considering we've got our own age-wise guide for family caregivers coming out a chapter every month, it's a subject that is near and dear to our hearts. So if you find yourself in the role of caregiving for an older adult, a loved one, a spouse, this topic is pure gold. So enjoy today's conversation with AgeWise. Dr. Barry Jacobs and Dr. Julia Meyer, thanks so much for joining us today on AgeWise.
Thank you much, Dan. We're glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Barry, I want to start with you. We had a conversation, I think it was 2 years ago, where we had a long and really rich discussion in a previous episode of AgeWise, and we got into the topic of family caregiving. What inspired you to actually do this book along with Julia?
So Julia and I have been working as psychologists and healthcare consultants and authors in the family caregiving space for 30 plus years. And one of the things that has happened over that time is lots of not just psychotherapy clients, but neighbors and friends and colleagues have asked us questions. They'll say, hey, let me just pick your brain, right? And I'm sure they do that to you, Dan, as well, asking about long-term care. But we have had conversations with lots of folks asking lots of questions. And many of the questions we hear again and again, and it always disturbs us in a way that people find that they have to care for a family member and they don't know where to begin, and they don't know the details that they need to really be as effective as they want to be. So what we did is we just put together about 150 questions that we've heard most commonly, and we wrote down our most typical answers, and that's the book. And in a way, it's a kind of culmination of the work that we each have done for a long, long time.
To that point, Julia, maybe I'll direct this one to you. You referenced that this is a reference book, that the questions and answers are there. And I found it interesting that you started with the topic of what is caregiving? So even defining it. So what's special about the family caregiver role that may be different, either from a functional perspective or from an emotional perspective, than a paid outside caregiver?
Well, as a family caregiver, you have a choice. You have lots of choices. So the goal is to identify yourself as a caregiver so that you can get all the support you need. You can set the limits you need to set. You can decide what you want to do as a caregiver, who else will be doing it with you. A lot of families, they just expect, let's say, the single adult daughter to take care of the mom, or no conversation about it. And the daughter just feels obligated and doesn't identify as a caregiver. They say, it's my mom. I'm going to take care of my mom. But if she identifies as a caregiver, she has a better chance of not burning out. She has a better chance of getting her needs met along the way, getting support from other people, planning. It just makes for a better caregiving experience in the long run.
I want to shift gears, Julia. How do you counsel someone, either in your practice or hopefully this answer is in the book, when mom or dad doesn't want help, but they need it?
That is not an uncommon problem. And it takes some patience and persistence and a lot of care. And sometimes it's gradual. It is usually gradual. First you start out bringing her some food, doing her laundry, mowing her lawn. Then you're paying her bills. And then you're noticing that she's not taking her pills right and is, wandering at night. Things get worse over time. And so oftentimes the care receiver doesn't even know that you're a caregiver until it kind of hits a critical point where a lot has to be done.
More than anything, what we recommend in the book and recommend to our clients is that the kids come to the parents and say, hey, I don't want to take over your life. I want to support you in living exactly the way you want to live. as you get older. But we need to take into account that as you get older, you don't see as well, you don't hear as well, you don't have your balance isn't the same. We have to make some sort of adjustments, and so if you want to stay in your home, we got to make some modifications in the home. If you want to stay in the community, maybe the 3-story home isn't a great idea anymore. Maybe we need to find you the 1-floor apartment. But our job is to help you live the way you want to live, so long as you're making the kind of decisions which will enable you to live safely.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that last comment about living safely is the key issue that we see every day in our business at Silver Solutions, right? Because we help support people that are aging in place. We work with families and an older adult when the time comes to downsize or move into a more suitable place, even if that's assisted living. But the key thread across all of those is safe and independent does take some additional work as you get older.
yeah.
Um,
And
I want to speak to for a moment
yeah.
the sibling dynamic. We often talk about mom or dad doesn't want the help. It's fascinating, and I'm assuming you've seen it in your practice and have probably addressed it in the book as well, to see the sibling dynamics start to emerge when it comes time for the family caregiving role. What's the advice that you'd give specifically for brothers and sisters and someone who's not a spouse to actually work together successfully?
I mean, there are 3 points that we make. Number one, to the degree that siblings can work together, it's to the parent's benefit. And conversely, when the siblings are fighting with one another and can't agree, they're undermining the parent's well-being. It makes the parents upset, let alone, it makes it more difficult to coordinate a good plan for the parent. The second thing is, we always say to siblings and that the way you treat one another in mom's hour of need, or you will remember forever, and this will affect your relationships forever. And that means that if they fight like crazy, call each other names, and really take, in the worst case scenario, even take each other to court, and we've seen that. Those relationships are damaged to the point of never being able to be repaired. And again, when siblings learn to work together as adults, and they may never have worked together as adults before, they may have moved out of the parents' house at 18 and send each other Christmas cards once a year, and now they have to work together. That when they learn to work together and do a good job, it strengthens their relationships. It's like they've been through, the wartime together. They feel a sense of camaraderie that maybe they didn't have.
I noticed in going through the advanced copy of the book that you provided, one of the chapters that seemed so important, and I was thrilled that you were writing about it, was you don't really have to do this on your own. Part of the role as a family caregiver is to partner with other professionals. Julia, can you talk a little more about that and what some of the most important themes out of that chapter are?
Yeah, there are a number of things. One is we talk about how best to talk to professionals so that as the caregiver, you aren't the sole person that, let's say, the physician talks to, or they ignore you and only talk to the care receiver. It's good to come with a list of questions and be efficient about it, because often providers are in a hurry. It's your job to learn as much as you can so that you can help plan and figure out what needs to be done when. And most caregivers underestimate the length of time they will be caregiving, so it's good to learn about what those tend to be. And I think one of the most important things in the book is this issue of having a support network. So finding a caregiver support group, or whether it's a religious institution, that you belong to, but letting people know that you are a caregiver, and are there resources there? Do people help with rides? Or is there someone, a good friend you can talk to and just complain a little bit if you need to, just to feel supported? It's extremely important in order to keep going.
Yeah, and,
You
and
know,
Dan, in your work, I imagine people reach out to you and to your the folks that work for your company, and when they are able to form a kind of partnership with them, to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, which is to help a parent move and do it as effectively as possible and safely as possible, and help them make the best adjustment possible. That partnership you form really better help you achieve those goals. So the partnership piece of this is key. If they fight you, and because they're upset or they're angry or they can't deal with their grief of the fact that their parent is declining and needs some of these changes, then it leads to a poor result, and that's not good for anybody. And so I'm sure your folks have a lot of experience with forming those partnerships with family members.
Part of the value that we provide is as an independent third party. Probably not different than your roles as therapists either. You're a neutral voice that's listening. I want to move on to a different topic, and it's probably, in my view, the toughest one for people to wrap their heads around, and probably the reason none of us like to address the issue of getting older, which is mortality. How do you deal with end-of-life issues in this book, and what are the things that you've learned, Julia, in your practice over the years that help family members, either as the older adult or as the caregiver, with the finality of end of life?
I think grief is hard for people. It's just something that I don't know whether it's in this country that we don't express it very well. We don't share it with other people. So, we suggest to people that end of life is a natural thing, and it's a matter of acceptance. And so you have that in mind while you're caregiving, because you can't not. And while you have it in mind, you're thinking, I need to make the most of this. This is the person I'm caring for is someone who ultimately will pass away. And I want to make this time as meaningful and special as I can. So if you start from there, when they do pass away, you can have a feeling of grief. You can have a feeling of relief that this was a difficult job, as well done as possible. And you can look back on it and have a sense of satisfaction that you made the most of the time that you had, even though, that said, people, have fights, they have arguments, whatever. People have normal relationships, even when they're caregiving. But what you want at the end is to feel like I did the best I could. It was really meaningful. I made the most of it. And I am proud of myself. And I have that relationship to hold on to, even once the person's gone.
Really terrific insights. Talk to me again. The book comes out July when? What's the actual day?
The day is July 9th. It will be available at all usual outlets for purchasing books online. It's being published by Guilford Press. You could always purchase it from there or from the AARP website. And, we really appreciate the opportunity, Dan, to share a little bit about the book. It really is intended to help people feel like they can walk this path with some foresight about what's coming, but also how to feel competent in doing the best that they can, because that truly is what most of us want to do.
Really great advice to end on. The co-authors of the new AARP Caregiver Answer Book, Dr. Barry Jacobs and Dr. Julia Mayer. Thanks so much for joining us today on AgeWise. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend or someone else who'll benefit from this critically important information about being a family caregiver. For all of us here at Silver Solutions, I'm Dan Lagani. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be wise.